Thank you, Chair. We're going to ask a couple of questions. I want to take us to the Coorong, Lower Lakes and Murray Mouth and seek an update or some advice on algae blooms and avian flu risk. So I'm not sure whether we have any officers there.
Dean O'Connell, Deputy Secretary. Dr Banks, the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, will happily talk to those.
Thank you, Senator. Simon Banks, Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder. So I think there were two components to your question. The first one around algae. Yeah,
I had some members of the community expressing concern around it, so I'm interested whether any work be undertaken and any response that may or may not be coming. And on the avian flu risk, I've been advised that that risk seems to be growing, and obviously the region's important to migratory birds. So that's in essence my query.
In relation to the algae risk down in the lower lakes, I think as we've seen conditions start to dry down there, there's been low rainfall. We are seeing the risk of things like algae start to increase. We certainly, from an environmental water holder perspective, we've been utilising water down there to try and manage lake levels, because the lake levels again are starting to reduce, and again that's based on regulated conditions on the back of, we had some good years in 22, 23 and 23, 24. Since that time, we're seeing the lake levels go down, and similarly with barrage releases, currently there's only fishways are open. So when you reduce flow in the system, then things like algae certainly do grow as a risk in the system. So we're not doing anything particular directly on algae other than utilising the Commonwealth's water to try and improve flows. And earlier this week we were having a conversation around how increasing our contribution to the South Australian, to support the lower lake levels, and ultimately the Coorong, to maintain that connection into the Coorong.
Senator Andrew McConnell, Chief Executive of the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. If I might add, my understanding in relation to the Coorong South Lagoon, it's actually marine algal bloom, so not what we would normally see in the river situation. That's my understanding. Water quality issues managed largely by Water SA, SAG.
Yes, so I'm seeking just assurances that you're on top of it, which you are.
Yeah, yes.
And to the avian flu risk.
Yep. In terms of avian flu, the Australian government has a HPAI, so an avian flu preparedness task force, and that's coordinated by the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, along with our department, Department of Health and Aged Care, and the National Emergency Management Agency. And as the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, we work through our department to prepare for that. So we're looking at developing a decision support tool that supports my decision making around the use of Commonwealth environmental water. In terms of risk, I think, and I sort of bit of touch wood, there is absolutely a risk that this avian flu that has been devastating internationally may reach Australia. At the moment, it hasn't reached the mainland, and I suspect, given we're through the sort of pretty well through the migratory bird season, we might have, we might be okay this year. But of course, whatever we can do to prepare for the next season, and given the Coorong and Lower Lakes is really important for migratory birds, it is an area that is a particular focus in terms of concern. The government has also provided funding to support increased surveillance. So again, we'll look at that from a Commonwealth environmental water perspective to see how we can increase surveillance in other areas where not only the Coorong Lower Lakes, but in other areas where the risk of avian flu has increased because of the presence of migratory birds coming into the system.
I don't want to bog us down on the surveillance program. Could you take on notice just some details of the surveillance program so that so I can give assurances to members of the community that have raised it?
Yes, Senator.
You know, just the nature of how many and how you've applied the government funds.
Yep. Sorry, Senator, I should say we've got part of our current monitoring program down in the Coorong Lower Lakes is already part of the opportunity that we can utilise with scientists out on the ground, where if they make observations, about birds, then there's a mechanism to report that back to the relevant biosecurity agencies.
Yes, so it's been done within existing frameworks, but if there's any extra being done, please take that on notice.
Yep.
I come from the perspective of having community meetings, so not necessarily from a budget perspective. Is there any consequences in relation to avian flu risk as a result of the floods? Because the floods were also very beneficial to bird life, and has there been a consequent growth in bird life and therefore the risk is higher, or am I drawing too long a bow there?
Yeah, look. I think on the back of the floods, obviously the floods, water birds responded to the floods, and so we had some significant water bird breeding across the basin, in different parts of the basin where it's known, the Macquarie, the Narran Lakes, Macquarie Marshes, and some of these are our internationally important wetland sites. So we've, again, environmental water has been used to try and manage the levels in those systems to ensure completion of those. I think post-floods, what we're trying to do is ensure that there is habitat for the fledglings to get them as healthy as possible. So I suppose the idea being, if the animals, like the birds, are healthy, and they're probably more the resident ones through our watering actions, then we hope that they might respond should the bird flu arrive in the system at a later date. But I don't know that there's necessarily, it's more those pathways that the bird flu might reach Australia are the risk, and then how we respond through those sort of whole of government processes should it arrive.
I think just one quickly. So, Senator, we have some people in our biodiversity division who I suspect might be able to give you a little bit more information. So I'll take that question on notice for the whole department, and I'll have my environmental side come back, because it's an important question you ask.
Yes, I come from the perspective of members of the community raising it with me, and
so we'll come back to
I bring those questions to here.
Yeah, and Senator, we will try and get the information that is relevant to this department. I think the official referred to the whole of government processes. Yes. They're led by the Minister for Agriculture, which I offer simply as a point of information, since it's likely to be an area where you have a continuing interest.
Thank you.